Hi, I'm Johnny, and this is Comics Altruism. This is my entry into Comics Addiction's 400 subscriber contest, and he's got two things that he wants us to do, and this contest is closing soon, so I think you've got like a day as of the publishing of this video. I'll leave the link below just in case you got the time. So the two things, he wants us to shout out two YouTube channels that we think could use a little more love, and then the other thing was to show off 5 of our favorite books, and he didn't specify that they had to be comic books, so I'm taking the liberty of doing like what Celia does but backwards, where she generally goes into literary critiques, and then she also happens to be a comic book nerd in moderation, so I'm doing what she does. So I'm gonna do the shout outs first while it's fresh on my mind. There are 2 channels that I very recently came in contact with. The first one is Alex Big Blue, and I'm digging what he's putting down so far. Just check him out. I'll leave the links for everybody below. The second one is Thomas Wayne, and we had some interaction the other night. He seems like a cool dude. I'm looking forward to seeing more of what he has to offer, and I think that he's a pretty knowledgeable dude when it comes to comic books, and that's part of what I watch all your channels for, is to just get an education. So that's cool. And then the last 2 I know I'm going over, but I gotta give a shout out to I Collect a Lot for his very kind words toward my channel. So thank you for that. And then the other one, again, is Josh R. Comics and Gaming, and he just hit 50 subscribers. And he's also been very supportive by way of buying comics from me so that we can donate to charity. So awesome on you, Josh R. Alright, so let's go into the books. I'm going to show off, this is one of my favorite writers, Jack Kerouac, Big Sur. And there's a reason I didn't choose On the Road, and that's because it's sort of like Nirvana with Nevermind, how Nevermind really cemented that genre in the public eye, and it kind of set the tone for the next couple of years. But In Utero is so clearly the better album of the 2, and it's very unappreciated. And that's what this book is for me. Because this is, alcoholism is only cool for so long, and then it's just not all of a sudden. And that's where he was at when he wrote this book. And he clearly has a problem, and he clearly knows it, and he's very honest about it. And his style has evolved by this point to become a lot more refined than it had been with On the Road. Even though On the Road is basically a perfect novel, I would give this one another thumbs up on top of that. Well worth checking out. It's very gritty, and let's see what they say. His grittiest book, Sensual and Uninhibited. That's not as good as it sounds, trust me. Alright, the second one is Jose Saramago's Blindness. And something I've noticed about a lot of Nobel Prize for Literature laureates is that they capture and encapsulate the essence of mankind in that the yin and yang of it all, right? They're not necessarily making a Buddhist reference like that, but they often give us an example of just how terrible we can be as a species, but then why there is a reason for hope. And so I could have easily shown off Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath, etc., etc., but I've chosen this one because it's very readable, and I think I read this in like 2 days because it's very catchy. It's a page turner, so I strongly suggest that one. And then the third one, I'm a little biased here because this is a fellow Canadian, and Oryx and Crake, unfortunately, is a lot more bleak than a lot of the Nobel laureates because she doesn't really provide a positive outlook to finish things off. This is part of a trilogy. This is the only one I've read, and it also happens to be my introduction to Margaret Atwood as a writer. And it just so happens as well, I share a birthday with Margaret Atwood. How cool is that? I mean, I'm not 79 years old, but, our birthday is the same. Strongly suggest this one. Our trajectory as a species is headed toward kind of a dark place, and she kind of takes that trajectory to its logical conclusion. I'm not going to give any more away. It's just awesome. Now we'll head into the comic stuff. This one is a beast. And yeah, I really dig it. It's like a whole history. We go through, yeah, all the way back to pulps, and yeah, it's definitely very visually appealing too. It gives us lots of examples of, you know, the eras, and here we've got some of that stuff from the 60s, early 60s, I think. It goes into the whole story about Wortham and his whole crusade there against everything that was amazing about society and just how to bring it all to a halt, creatively speaking. I see pictures of all those comics they burned when they were doing that. Oh, dear God. So horrible. Alright, the next one. This is also a beast, and I got this for free from my mom, who happens to work at a library as a circulation clerk, and they were just giving this away, so she scooped it up, and she knew I was into comic books. This was obviously way before I started doing this. And yeah, it's got some fairly brief explanations about certain characters, like the ones that we don't really care about, and then other ones it gives them a couple of pages, and yeah, it tells you everything from first appearance to real name, occupation, where they were from. It even does this whole like height, weight, hair, eye color, all that stuff. And then yeah, it just mentions like what everybody's superpowers are. I'd really like to read this cover to cover, but as you can see, like, that's a hell of a book. It's really more of a reference book. So that was a little more long-winded than I had planned, but thank you, Comics Addiction, for that contest and for allowing us to show off our favorite books, and also to shout out channels that we feel deserve more love. All right, awesome contest. Have a good one. Bye.